Damn, guys. We had another pretty heavy episode of Ranking of Kings today, I gotta say. And I think this might actually be one of the best episodes in the whole show so far because the deep meaning and symbolism behind a lot of the things that happened in today's episode really kind of struck me. And this episode took longer for me to watch because there were multiple scenes I kind of paused in a moment just to really take in what exactly was happening. Because, like I said, it was quite a heavy episode. So let's kind of get into it. We got a decent amount to talk about in this episode. But before that, welcome back to the channel, guys. As you've guessed, we are here with episode 19 of Ranking of Kings. And men, it really feels like we're heading towards the climax, men. It really feels like the final battle is approaching. You know, you really get that feeling with this episode, with Ouken just terrorizing everyone. Like, what a monster. Like, quite literally a monster we see in this episode as well. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about last week's episode. Because the beginning of this week's episode, or I say today's episode, the next one, is we kind of get a continuation of the last episode where we remember about the other country betraying Homa to the gods, and we kind of see the aftermath of that a bit. We see Boss's perspective in it all because he was away when all this happened, when all this bloodshed and horror happened, so he has no clue. So he finds out and he immediately rushes back to the village and he's horrified at what he sees. Not only were all the Homa people basically slaughtered and just tossed away, they Jesus Christ. They beat Miranjo, tied her to a post, cut her hands off, and scarred her face. And they reveled in it. Boss even said it himself. He's like, "You all feel justified by doing something like this?" It's appalling. And in a fit of rage, he kills all of them. He kills everyone. The men, the women, and even their children. He kills them all in his rage. One woman even tries to say, "Spare my child," which is just how dare they? Honestly, if you really think about it, just how dare they do something like that after what they did to Miranjo? So he kills them all, and he takes her out of there to try to restore her smile in a way. But it's easier said than done because he completely blames himself for it. Even when he thinks that she's going to recover and finally get her smile back, he blames himself for her staying the way she is. Which, if you think about it, is kind of true in a way because she's kind of become obsessed with him in a way. And it's kind of that obsession that's really holding her back from getting over this instance. This isn't something that you can easily get over. Watching your people, your home, your mother die, and the people you thought you could trust betray you and treat you like that. It's not something you can easily get over, but her being with Boss for so long, she never had the time to properly heal from the instance. Because she was just in a perpetual state of misery the whole time. Yeah, she was with him and that made her happy, but that's not what she needed at the time to really heal. So this whole time she's just been hanging on to that anger, that hatred. And Boss realizes this and he blames himself for it. But anyway, we got the return of Notepad Kun. He's been helping very much recently. So in the next scene, we actually transition to we transition back to our characters, dealing with Oaken. And in our last episode, we ended with Kage seemingly swallowing Oaken whole. And we think we won for a second. Kage's smiling, Bojji's smiling. But it's never that easy. It's never that easy. And Ouken stabs his way through Kage, potentially killing him on the spot right then and there, to Bojji's horrified eyes. And he even stabs Bojji. Like, Bojji's done. Everyone there has been taken out. And Ouken just sits down and relishes in it. Because as we've learned from previous episodes, he doesn't strike their vital points intentionally. He likes to get close to them and almost kill them just so he can watch them suffer as they die. Truly a twisted guy, I gotta say. And Bojji, Despa, Kage, and even the underworld captain are all down for the count, like they're dying. And Miranjo actually does something quite strange in this instance. She leaves the mirror and possesses one of the criminal's bodies, and she actually goes to heal Kage. Which, well, actually, we'll get into that in a bit, but in the process of that, Despa and Bojji actually are able to go inside of Miranjo's mind in a way. And we see the place between life and death. And it's such an interesting concept, honestly. We see between life and death in there. And we see Kage crossing or trying to cross a river to get to his mother. And Despa quickly pieces together what's going on and realizes that if Kage is able to cross that bridge, he's not going to be able to come back. It's metaphorically between life and death. He's on life right now, and his mother's in death. So if he crosses over to her, his soul leaves his body, and he's dead. So they're desperately trying to stop him. And of course, he's just happy, you know? He's seeing his mother for the first time in who knows how many years. And he's ecstatic. But the person that actually stops him from crossing that bridge is Miranjo. She grabs the rope that's dangling from the bridge and she holds him in place. And she asks him, like, don't you have anything in this life worth sticking around for? Don't you have anything worth living for? And Kage doesn't know what to say at first. You know, because he sees his mother, and of course he's ecstatic to see her. But then he remembers to himself, that's right, I have Bojji. And we get a really, really sad scene. I teared up a little bit watching this scene. Because Kage realizes that, yeah, I do. I have something worth living for, worth fighting for. And he turns to his mother and says, it's not my time yet, you know? I have to go help him no matter what. And you can tell his mother is just heartbroken by that decision. Because she obviously wants to be with him too. But they both put on brave faces for each other. And she sees him off again. And this scene was sad, man. I did tear up a little bit. The symbolism is incredibly good in this show. And Miranjo reels him in, and Kage actually thanks her, which she did not expect. She did not expect for him to thank her. And she feels relieved. She feels happy about that. And just what a complicated character Miranjo is, dude. I gotta say, like, I don't know how I feel about her, honestly. Because she's done some pretty awful things, but she's had some truly awful things done to her. But yet, at the same time, she still helps people in some scenes, but then she betrays and kills people in other scenes. It's like, I don't know how to feel about her. That's the sign of a pretty well-written character, honestly, where you can't get a feel of whether you like them or dislike them. She's honestly becoming one of my favorite characters in this show. Because we see in that same scene, we see across the river from her, we see her mother who died, and we see Bojji's mother, his real mother, the first queen, standing over there just staring at her. And this scene hit hard too. This scene hit very, very hard. Because to me, what it felt like is that was her kind of deciding who she wants to be moving forward. Like, I feel like Bojji's mother was standing there to symbolize the hatred and anger that she's hanged on to for all these years. And her mother was there to kind of symbolize who she used to be, the incredibly nice, caring person. And I'm truly curious to know where she lands after this. It's like I said, she's probably the most complicated character in this whole show. I think they've done her very well. You definitely feel for her at the end. Even with all the heinous, awful things she's done, you definitely feel for her in it. And that's the sign of good writing. But anyway, we transition back over to Ouken, who's just watching them all suffer. Bojji, Despa, and all of them, just watching them suffer. And we actually get, I think for the first time in the entire series, we get the big four of the kingdom actually coming together to confront Ouken. We get Apis, Domas, Bepin, who has been talking to the king the whole time. That's how we got the backstory, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that in the previous episodes. Like, we got Miranjo's backstory from Boss himself, but Bepin has been the one that's asking him. And we have Dorsch there, too. So we have the big four of the kingdom for the first time all together, and they confront Ouken. And they put on a show, I gotta say. They pretty kind of easily take him down, honestly. They pretty handily take him down and subdue him, and it looks like he's done. Like, Dorsch has him pinned down, like he can't move, he can't do anything. But then, in good old anime fashion, guys, we get a flashback scene. And every time a character gets a flashback in anime, guys, you already know what's going to happen. Literally the second they zoom in on Ouken's face and then we hear Despa's voice in the background, I'm like, oh man, we're getting a flashback. Here comes a power-up. So you know I've seen a lot of anime. But, yeah, he gets a flashback to one of the teachings that Despa teaches him. And in this scene, we realize that maybe he's not completely all gone, if he can remember that. But in this scene, Despa is essentially telling us, the audience, about Ouken's real ability. That when he's backed into a corner is when he can really bring out his true abilities. And that's why he was called, I wrote it down, that's why he's called Sword King of the Underworld. And he quite literally gets a second wind in him. Like, that's his ability, apparently, to be able to do that. And in the matter of about a minute, if even a minute, he takes down the big four. He's able to quickly subdue them. And our final scene of the episode is them rallying themselves for one final push. The last battalion, the last line of defense for the kingdom against Ouken, who quite literally is almost unstoppable at this point. And I'm very curious to know where we go from here, because like I said at the beginning of this episode, guys, this feels like the end game now. Like, we're in the end game right now, so there's not really too much that can happen. Like, how are we going to take down Ouken is what I want to know. Like, what can take him down at this point? Lightning doesn't work anymore. They can't physically take him down. They're going to have to restrain him some way. That's the only way, because they can't kill him. So they have to constrain him in some sort of way. And I'm very curious to see how they do it. But yeah, guys, I think that'll be it for today's episode. Like I said, we had a pretty impactful episode. This episode really made me, I don't know, not really feel for Miranjo more, but like made me look at her character in a different way, I suppose, than I have been. These past couple episodes have really made me think about how I feel about her as a character. And honestly, I'm not sure yet. I'm not really that sure. I don't think I dislike her, but I can't say I love her character yet either. Truly a well-written character if you feel that way. But you guys let me know how you feel in the comments about this episode, because I thought it was phenomenal. But if you feel differently, like I said, let me know. I'd love to hear your opinion. Even if it completely disagrees with mine, let me know in the comments. And yeah, guys, I think that, like I said, I think that'll be it for today's episode. We had a good episode today. We had a lot of stuff go down, and we're heading towards the end game. So until next time, guys, I hope you guys have a great day, week, month, and year. And yeah, just deuces and have a blessed day. See ya.